Okay, let's look at the describe question. So describe, so they can say describe why, means explain, right? Give reasons. Describe how means you tell me step by step a process. How does it happen from step 1 to step 2 to step 3? Okay, so let's try out the question. Number 1, describe why the enzyme tag polymerase is used in PCR, 2 marks only. So we know, isn't it? Okay. So this is the mark scheme lah. So tag polymerase is used to synthesize the complementary DNA strands during DNA replication. We want to amplify the DNA, right, during PCR. So we use this enzyme to synthesize the complementary DNA strand from the template strand, right? And then number 2, why do we use this tag polymerase? Because it is heat stable, or I like the word called thermostable. Right? So therefore, and also it does not need to be added again for each cycle because it's thermostable. When we do the PCR, we bring the temperature to very high temperature to speed up the rate of the DNA replication. And because tag polymerase is thermostable, we do not need to replenish or add in fresh enzyme because the previous enzyme is denatured. It will not be denatured, so we can reuse it again. And then because it's thermostable, we can carry out the process PCR at high temperature. So therefore, it's more efficient. Means I don't like the word efficient. Try not to use the word efficient in exam because I don't understand the meaning of efficient. So no. Please don't write the word efficient because I don't understand. Right? Write exactly what you mean by efficient. Is it higher? Is it faster? Is it what? Okay. So the process can occur faster because you do at higher temperature and the enzyme not denatured. Okay, faster than what? Faster than the normal DNA polymerase that we use. Okay, so again, choose a more accurate word to use and more crystal clear answer. Like efficient is a general term. I don't like this word because sometimes you write, you won't get marks one. Sometimes you look at the past year, sometimes you use the word efficient, there's no mark. So try to avoid those words unless you really cannot think of any other word lah. Okay. Number 2, describe how the enzyme tag polymerase is used in PCR. How this enzyme is used in PCR. This question phrasing is a bit strange. Anyway, how is it being used? I'll say, how does the enzyme catalyze a reaction? Okay. So this enzyme will synthesize complementary DNA strand. How does it synthesize? By joining nucleotides together. I really got question mark that this one is. I would say not accurate. Now it joined what? It joined a free DNA nucleotide to the terminal nucleotide of a polynucleotide strand. I think that's more accurate. That's what it does, right? You join a free DNA nucleotide to a terminal, means the last nucleotide of a polynucleotide strand. So that is more accurate because it cannot join a free nucleotide to a free nucleotide one. It must join a free nucleotide to a short DNA strand. It means a short single-stranded DNA. So that's what it can do. So write accurately exactly what it does. Okay. And therefore, it allows the new strand to move from 5' to 3' direction. So the template strand is here. So the template strand is, this is 3' and this is 5'. So the new strand will grow from 5' to 3'. So it's allow it to grow from 5' to 3' direction, right? So therefore, it will add new nucleotide to the terminal nucleotide of this polynucleotide strand, okay? So when you revise, try to visualize whatever that you are studying so that you can see very clearly the process in your mind. And therefore, you can explain very crystal clearly, okay? Visualization is very useful. If not, draw it out, okay? So that you can see for yourself. Now, the next question describe is, you know, like this is a graph. So it asks you to do what? To describe. So when they ask you to describe the graph or table or diagram, now what is it that you need to describe? Let us recap again. So we will first talk about the general trend or the general pattern of the graph. Then we divide the curve into subsection. For example, the curve, if it goes up and then it comes down, right? So we divide into two subsections. Or it goes up, it levels up and comes down. So got three subsections. So it's called subsection of the pattern. Then after that, what is the highest point or optimum or plateau? So it becomes plateau. Where is it? Then what is the lowest point? Where is the intersection point? You've got two lines. Where do they intercept? Okay. And then what is the gradient of the curve? Is there any anomaly, okay, of the curve in the graph? So all these things we can use to describe. And then please remember that there will always be mark given for quote a pair of figures. And sometimes if you don't quote the figures, you cannot get full marks one. You definitely have to quote at least a pair of figures, sometimes a few. So every time they ask you to describe from the graph as well as from the table, whether it is quantitative or qualitative data, please quote the at least one data. This one is, I'm very surprised when I mark the trial exam paper, majority of students, let's say I've got 10 students, 9 of them, they did not quote. I actually cannot understand, because this one is something that's being learned in AS already, and yet student didn't quote. I do not know why. That one, because of that, a lot of students didn't get the full marks for described question. So you want to avoid this in exam. Make sure you score full marks. Just to quote the figures is very easy. Okay. So let's look at the question. Figure 1.1 shows the relationship between annual deforestation rate in the y-axis and the annual human population growth in percentage for 6 different countries, right? Okay, so the countries are all stated here. So question asks the student to describe the relationship shown in figure 1.1. So describe the relationship, that means the relationship between the y-axis and the x-axis for these 6 countries. So you can see that there's a relationship, right? As the population growth rate increases in percentage for all the countries except for V, the Vietnam, then the percentage annual deforestation also increase, right? So therefore the answer in general trend. First, general trend. The higher the population growth, the higher the rate of deforestation. So general trend number 1. Then quote the details. Okay, the data now. So what is the highest you can quote? What is the lowest you can quote, right? Burundi has the highest population growth. So what is the highest population growth? So Burundi is actually, so you got 2 data to quote. You got the, what is the population growth and also what is the annual deforestation. So read accurately vertically downwards and horizontally to the y-axis. Read the value accurately. So Burundi has the highest population growth at 3.5, which is here. So read accurately from here all the way down. This is exactly 3.5. Okay, 3.5. So quote there 3.5 and don't forget the unit. I've got students who quote the figure but didn't get the marks because didn't write the units. Now don't forget, even AU is a unit. I know that that unit is in arbitrary unit, so you have to put AU. Must put AU also if it's arbitrary units. Okay, and then causes highest annual deforestation rate, which is 3.1. So therefore, from B, make sure that your line is exactly horizontal. So this is 3.1. So read off accurately. So it's 3.1%. So this is the highest, right? Then what about the lowest? So you have to quote a pair of figures, a pair of X and Y and another pair of X and Y. Okay. So Z, Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe has only 1% population here, okay, but and therefore it causes only 1.4% of deforestation here. So always quote, can you say a pair of figures, a pair of XX, YY lah. So you got 2 XX and 2 YY, so it's a pair, okay. Now what else? So you see this anomaly, isn't it? So anomaly also you can quote. Vietnam does not does not fit into the trend. And then you quote the figures. Why does it not fit into trend? When it's got 1.9 annual growth rate, the growth, 1.9 annual human population growth rate, the percentage deforestation is 3.6, which is actually very high, right? That means the population size is not that high, but the deforestation is highest among all the countries. So there's a massive deforestation happening in Vietnam. Okay, so this is the how you need to describe the graph. Remember, quote the figures. Okay, now this is another example here. So shall we do this question also? So let's do it. With reference to the figure, describe the change in the percentage of genetic modified cotton grown in US since 1996. So they are only concerned about cotton. So that means you're going to look at HT cotton and BT cotton. BT means the BT toxin, right? HT, I think HT maybe is herbicide tolerant. Okay, HT is herbicide tolerant. BT means you create that toxin in the plant itself so that it becomes a pesticide, right? Okay, so we're only concerned about these two curves only, these two for cotton. So we're supposed to describe the changes. So again, first point is you need to talk about the general trend, right? So general trend, percentage of GM crop grown increase over the 12 years. So you see for both of them increasing, right? So increasing from 1996 to 2000. Why the data look a bit strange? Can you see something not correct? 004, 006, 008, then suddenly 006 again, then 008 again. I think something wrong here, okay, but doesn't matter. So let's say this 2010 and 2012. Okay. Then you see here, you can talk about the gradient, right? So now first you talk about general trend, then look at the gradient. So the increase is the fastest. We're talking about a gradient, right? So the increase is the fastest between 1996 and 1999. So 1996 and 1999 is here. So between this timing, 1996 to 1999 is when the increase is the fastest. Now, this is not code figures yet. Code figures means both the X and Y axis figures must be quoted, right? Doesn't mean you quote the year means already quote. No. What about the Y-axis figures? Must quote both. So this is not quote. This is called describe only. Now the student quote the data. So this is called quote the data, right? BT cotton increases from 16% in 1996 to 75% in 2013. So this one is actually 2013. So I don't know why these two are incorrect. Okay. So this one is 2013. So the student is quoting figure for the description here. Okay. You can also quote figure for this one also. You will also get the mark. Okay. But the student choose this one to quote the figure. So give the statement, quote the figure. Give the statement, quote the figure. HT cotton increases from 2% in 1996 to 82%. Why this one? Because easier to read. It's given already. You can see now 82% and 76% is given. So read this one that's why it's easier lah. Okay. Okay. So statement, quote figure, statement, quote figure. This one we want to do because it's a compare. Compare. So this is a compare question. So for compare, you need to give comparative statement. That means higher or lower between the two curves, right? Which one is higher, which one is lower, which one is faster, which one is slower. And then quote the comparative figures at least once. So compare the results for tubes A and tubes B, right? So you need to put comparative statements. So for both A and B, now you can see that B is always higher than A, right? In terms of percentage of oxygen in the solution for the entire time of the experiment. So my first statement will be compare both the results. So I'll say that both A and B, the percentage oxygen in the solution will increase throughout the timing of the experiment from 0 to 20 minutes. Okay. So then I can quote the figures up. Increases from what figure to what figure. So the first one to the last one. Increase from what figure to the what figure. Okay. Then this is more like the second statement. This is divide the entire pattern into subsection. So they say that initial rate for B is faster than the rate for A, which is true because this curve, right, is actually increases faster than this curve. So initially, the increase in B is higher than A, means the gradient. Then after this point, you can see that the increase in A is faster than increase in B. So this is for the comparing of the subsection of the curve already. Okay. Then of course, you see that this is only talking about the y-axis value, which is not quote the figures, it's only describe. Quote the figures means must give the y-axis value, which is 8.9%, 8.6%, which you can read on your own as well. Okay. Right. So let's go to next learning statement. Okay. Let's next statement is compare, contrast, and distinguish. So you already know compare means you must state similarity and difference. Contrast means state the differences. Distinguish means state the differences. So let's try out this question. Compare the pathways by which pyruvate is converted to ethanol or to lactate. This one is theory. So you know your theory. How are you going to write your answer so it's crystal clear? You can actually write out the equation of the reaction and then annotate fully to get the full marks for this one. So compare means I must have got similarity and differences, right? So first one is for both of them, the reduced NAD will be oxidized, so which is called NAD is being regenerated, so that glycolysis will continue. So this one everyone knows, right? You start with pyruvate, right? Pyruvate, and you want to regenerate the NAD. Okay, so next question, next answer. So next answer is all about differences already, because in yeast, it's called ethanol fermentation, right? In mammalian cell is lactate fermentation. So in yeast, step number 1 is decarboxylation. So if you draw out this one, is even better. Step number 1, so you can draw out this whole thing and write this process is called decarboxylation 1 mark. So the first product form is ethanol. So from 3 carbon pyruvate becomes 2 carbon ethanol. Okay. And then after that, from ethanol to ethanol. So this is a step where reduced NAD becomes NAD. So it regenerates here. So what does ethanol do? Ethanol will be reduced. So it's accept the hydrogen to become ethanol. So what is the enzyme? Enzyme is ethanol dehydrogenase. And this process is irreversible. Okay. Then in mammals, there's no decarboxylation. The process is reversible. So it's only one step, pyruvate to lactate. So pyruvate is the one that accepts hydrogen, and therefore NADH becomes NAD. Enzyme is lactate dehydrogenase. Okay, so this one is very direct. So you know your theory, you can score full marks for this one. Outline is also very brief answer. So just give the essential that you have learned in your syllabus without supporting details. So whatever you've learned in your syllabus, just outline the steps, okay? Or outline the procedure. So let's do the question. Outline how herbicide resistance in weeds arises and then spreads without horizontal gene transfer. I like this question. Outline looks at direct, and then suddenly they put without horizontal gene transfer. It's not so direct really. Okay, what does it mean? Herbicide resistance in weeds can arise and spread without horizontal gene transfer. Now, that means to say that this is a wheat plant. Okay, this is a wheat plant here. Okay, wheat plant. Wheat, herbaceous, I draw it herbaceous. Now, if you see, originally it's not resistant, but because of horizontal gene transfer, it becomes resistant. That means there could be a GMO, genetically modified organism, where this GMO plant, okay, I'm going to draw it thicker to show that it's a different species, and then we'll draw this one shorter, okay? Okay, like this. Okay, a different species where we have done a genetic engineering to create a GMO, where this GMO is herbicide resistant. Okay, so HT, herbicide tolerant. So it contains herbicide tolerant gene. And this is another species, but it's closely related to this one. So both of them are in the primary gene pool. So remember, primary gene pool means in plant, even though it's a different species, because they are closely related to each other, they can interbreed. So these are called the primary gene pool plant, like different kinds of orchids, right? They're different species, but because they're orchid, they can interbreed. So they are the primary gene pool plant. Horizontal transfer means what? Transfer between different species. Okay, this species A and this species B. So because of wind pollination, so the wind can blow and then the pollen can actually now spread to them and then pollinate the flower here. And then after pollination, the, the flower will become fruits. The fruit contains the seed. The seed landed on the ground. After that, it will grow to become a new plant. Okay? Right? So therefore, this is called horizontal gene transfer, just like bacteria, right? By conjugation. So you apply your knowledge about horizontal gene transfer in bacteria, it can do the same thing in plant, but not for animal. Animal cannot horizontal transfer, right? Because only different species cannot interbreed one. Okay. So now they say, okay, so this plant become resistant now, not because of horizontal transfer. It's by itself, it becomes resistant. So how can by itself become resistant? Then you learn how. You already learned what? You didn't learn about plant, you learn about bacteria. How a population of bacteria that's not resistant become a population of bacteria that is resistant. It all starts with mutation, isn't it? So there are always there's always mitosis in the plant and meiosis in the plant. Every time mitosis and meiosis, DNA must replicate. And every time DNA replicate, mistake may occur. And when the mistake is not corrected, therefore mutation occurs. So these are all the basic that you've learned. So this is when you apply your basic to understand the concept fully. Right? So you must know your basic very well. That's why I keep on telling my AS student, first semester, you must learn your basic, and then they don't like. They don't know yet what is A level. I said, you don't learn after that, you will learn everything in a short period of time. That's it. You need time to learn all these things, man. Okay, but I must bring you all to go and talk to them. So because of mutation, then the new allele arises, right? Which confer the herbicide resistant or herbicide tolerant. So this is not enough because we are talking about the whole population, isn't it? It cannot be one become resistant, everything become resistant. So we're talking about a whole population that's not resistant yet. So there are a lot of plants here. So I will use this to represent each plant. Okay, here, a bit dark, but never mind. So let's say each one of these is a plant. So these are all the plants in this population. All of them are species A. So these are all the populations. So among all of them, this particular one has got a mutation during the meiosis, right? And then new allele confer the herbicide resistant. And then after that, what happened? After that, the farmer start to spray the herbicide, okay? Spray the herbicide in this region. So when they spray the herbicide comes from environment, becomes a selection pressure, right? Which is actually the herbicide. So this is when the selection pressure is herbicide. So this newly mutated plant, okay, I'll say that mitosis also, okay, this newly mutated plant has got this HT allele, so it becomes a favorable allele in this new environmental condition. So this is selected for survival, right? So having favorable allele, favorable phenotype, favorable genotype, therefore survive and reproduce, all are the keywords, right? Okay, favorable allele, favorable phenotype, okay, survive, all the keyword, reproduce, pass on the allele to offsprings. So therefore the allele frequency for this herbicide resistant allele increases, isn't it? So therefore change in gene pool, right? Change in gene pool, so there'll be more and more resistant type. And then this one are selected against survival, the rest of them here. So selected against survival, so the number will drop. So after a long period of time, you see the entire population will have got more and more resistant type. So you apply what you've learned in the bacteria to any scenario, okay, animal and plant, fish, whatever. You are able to apply the same concept to answer question. So therefore, when you look at the question, you ask yourself, where have I learned this before that I can apply to answer this question? Then it becomes very easy, right? Because of spontaneous or random mutation, suddenly mutation occur. The weeds without mutation will die when herbicide is applied. The new allele gives selective advantage because it's a favorable allele, favorable phenotype. So those plants will survive and reproduce and pass on the allele to the offsprings. Therefore, the frequency of the new allele increases. You can see that you must write out the whole story. You cannot say that, oh, 4 marks. So you write 1, 2, 3. Sorry, whatever. Let's redo the whole thing. So I'm going to write 1, and then 2, and then 3 and 4. I think got 4 points already. But too bad. Number 3 and number 4 are put together as one marking point, because they want you to tell the whole story, because this is not full stop yet. The story must continue until here. So therefore, even though it's 4 points, please write all that you know that are correct, that are related to this question, please. So you can score full marks. Just in case they put like this, these 2 points are 1 point, then how? Okay, but didn't mean that just write everything you know, right? Write everything that's relevant to the question that you know. Not write everything about this chapter, please. If examiner mark can die one. Can you imagine? I read everything in the question but 0 mark. Wow, they were very frustrated one. Okay. Next, suggest question. Suggest is what? It can be short answer or long answer depending on question. It may not be in the syllabus, or it usually is in the syllabus, but you only need to give logical correct answer. Biologically is logical. Layman is also logical. Then it's correct. Okay, must apply your general knowledge and understanding of biology to answer the question. Data, response, and problem-solving question also possible. That means you give the data in table, in a graph, and then solve the problem. Also can be suggested, not only theory. So let's try out. How to figure out the possible answer for suggest question. Narrow down to the scope. Okay, for this question, which chapter it comes from? Or for this question, in the graph, in the table, which variable am I supposed to look at to get to the answer? Which variable? Okay. So let's try out these 3 questions of suggest. Okay. Number 1, do you want to answer or not? Suggest how human activities could damage coral reefs. This one you know already, right? How human activities could damage coral reefs. So this one you learn already, huh? Okay. So a lot of possibilities, right? So name, I really like this question because you cannot give a general answer one. So this is very important to do past year. See, you name a marine pollutant. For example, you know, this is about coral reef is in the sea. So what is it can cause coral reef to die in the sea? Now, you know that if you go to the sea, right, you got all the motorboats, right, you can start to see that when they pass by the water, right, there are a lot of oil, and there were oil that's left floating in the water. So that means to say that it could be the oil from the boats, motorboats, or the ship, right? Or the sewage from also the boats that release into the sea may cause a pollution that can kill the coral reef. And you see, they reject what? Reject water pollution only. If you give a general statement, or because of pollution, they die. Oh, what kind of pollution? You need to specify what kind of pollution, what kind of pollutant. And then number two, also same thing. You see, if you say, oh, climate change, oh, greenhouse effect, too bad, no mark. Because all these answers are Form 5 level answer, O level answer. This is A level. So to give A level answer means more detail. More detail. What is it? Sea level rising, right? Because of what? Because of ice melting, isn't it? Because of temperature increasing. Greenhouse effect means there's increase in temperature. Why? Because a lot of CO2. Why? Because of fossil fuel combustion. A lot of CO2 released to the air. It traps the heat. So the whole globe warms up, and it causes the iceberg melting. So the sea level increases, right? So when the sea level increases, then the pressure, as you go deeper, the pressure of the water increases. So it may not be suitable for the coral reef to survive, right? And then there's a decrease in oxygen. As you go deeper and deeper, the oxygen level decreases. Corals are animals. They need oxygen. So when they cannot get enough oxygen, they will die, right? The pressure will change. The temperature will become too hot. Oxygen is not enough. So all these things, you must mention the detail. Intensive fishing also will kill them. So it all depends on how they fish, right? If they use a crawling method where the net will actually crawl on the seabed, then all this coral will be killed lah. So it depends on the fishing, and they use the bomb to fish, then it depends, right? Ecotourism, this one you can know if some of you have gone to the ecotourism of the aquatic environment like Pulau Redang, Pulau Simpadan, right? You can see they say that when you go for snorkeling, do not remove anything from there and bring home, but you see that a lot of people will remove. They're going to disturb the sea turtle, they're going to disturb the fish, they're going to play around the coral. So this is when they kill the coral lah, right? Okay. Bring home, put their own aquarium. After that, they die because what is sea water. It cannot survive in a normal water. Okay. Removal of parts of the reef. Yeah. So visitor go and remove them. Reclamation of land. So you know that now in in Penang, right? Gurney Drive, right? They have actually filled up the sea so that it goes all. So they fill up the land so that the land extend all the way to the sea. So the coral reef grow in a very shallow water. So all of them will die, no more already. So reclamation of lands are all the human activities, right? Okay. So this is what suggests why respiration is said to be less efficient in anaerobic condition than aerobic. This one is very straightforward, you know, like right? Why anaerobic is less efficient than aerobic. So you can talk about how many number of ATP per mole of glucose per mole. Okay. And then the lactate is also not fully oxidized, so there's still energy inside there. And it only involves glycolysis, so it's partial, right? And then it cannot sustain indefinitely because lactic acid produced eventually will inhibit the enzyme because the pH becomes very acidic, right? Number 3 suggests why phosphorylated glucose does not diffuse out of the cell into the surrounding tissue fluid. So this question is an AS knowledge to answer this question, right? We know that step 1 in aerobic respiration is phosphorylation of glucose. We'll switch on the entire aerobic respiration pathway. Now, the moment you phosphorate the glucose, it cannot go out of the cell. So why? Go back to the basic. How did the cell transport glucose into the cell? It is through a carrier protein. So the moment you add a phosphate to glucose, it changes shape. So it cannot bind to the binding site of the carrier protein, so it cannot go out. And also, you know that the moment you convert glucose to phosphorylated glucose, it will switch on the aerobic respiration, means quickly converted to other molecules already, right? Right. Fructose bisphosphate, correct? From a phosphorated glucose, because fructose bisphosphate, and then becomes something else. It's quickly converted. So this is a suggest applying your basic knowledge to answer the question. So you need to know both aerobic respiration and also carrier protein, and also the size of molecule, how affect it to pass through the membrane. So the answer is it cannot pass through the phospholipid layer because it's too big to fit into the, I disagree, protein channel. It should be carrier protein, okay? There's no other transport protein for phosphorated glucose, and use up as soon as being made, means as soon as being made is converted to fructose bisphosphate. Okay, right. Discuss. Discuss means to give a critical account of the points involved in the topic. Sometimes need to be both positive and negative. Okay, so this is what, remember there's a question in your A2 trial exam that there's a discuss question where you need to write both the positive and negative arguments for that question. Not all the time. Sometimes if there's a positive and negative, you need to talk about both of them. Okay. Sometimes followed by question that asking. So in terms of using the word discuss, they may say comment. Comment, then you can say positive because of what, negative because of what, true because of what, not true because of what. Right? Remember, they ask you about the virus, whether virus should be considered as living organism or non-living organism in the question. So you can say it is considered as living because of what, and it is considered as non-living because of what. So it's got positive, negative lah, right? So question asks a student to discuss whether transgenic pigs have long-term economic value. So that means you must say yes because of what, no because of what. Yes, that means it must be advantageous for us, right? No, because it is not advantageous for us. So let's look at the answer. So the no arguments, maximum 2 marks. Can you see 3 marks? If you say everything no, 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 you only get maximum 2 marks. You also have to talk about the yes part, the yes argument, right? So, do you have a long-term value or not? No, because the transgenic pigs don't pass on their genes to the offspring. Now, this one, you have to read the passage. It says that the transgenic pigs, because they're very stressed, they do not interbreed. That means they will not breed, they will not interbreed with other pigs. This is in the passage lah. Because they do not interbreed, even though they're transgenic, you have gone through a lot of process to make them transgenic, but they cannot pass on their gene to the offspring is because they do not reproduce, because they don't want to interbreed among each other. Okay, so that's why number 1, they cannot, they do not interbreed, they do not mate because of problem of mating. And then cost of healthcare is that the moment you want to produce transgenic pig, you need to take care of the entire process from IVF, from collecting of the semen, artificial insemination, flushing out of the embryo, right? Splitting of the embryo, transfer of the embryo to surrogate mother, taking care of the health of surrogate mother. Then after birth, taking care of transgenic pigs. All these costs is very, very high, right? It becomes a transgenic pig will be very, very expensive, and the cost will go to the consumers that buy them. Okay, number 3, people may avoid or refuse to buy GM food because nowadays people more health concerned. Then therefore more and more people buy organic food until supermarket also start selling organic food, right? There's a section for organic. Last time don't have one because it's too expensive. People not aware. So therefore less people buy. So supermarket also don't have. Now supermarket we can buy organic food. You don't have to go to a specific shop to buy, right? Number 4, GM production cost expensive. So already said why. So you can explain, right? Which step, you know the entire steps, right? Or entire procedure, you know every step involved, all are costly. Each step costs money. Then yes argument means it has got economic value because For a short period of time, they grow very fast. So when they grow very fast, you can sell the meat in a shorter period of time. You can sell more meat, more mass in a short period of time. And also you can sell them at a younger age. So these are the only two advantages. If they grow faster, means we have to feed them more. I think eventually you can sell them faster, but you also need to feed them more. I think the cost is the same, isn't it? But it's actually more expensive because in order to buy transgenic pig, it's more expensive, right? But I think you can feed a higher population number. That's only advantage lah, because the pig grow bigger in a shorter period of time. Okay. Now, comment on the ethics of producing transgenic pigs, showing the features described. So the features described in the question says that transgenic pigs, they cannot reproduce, and then they're very stressed. So they say comment on means they have what is good about it and what is not so good about it, right? So it's good or unethical. It's unethical because the pig will suffer stomach ulcer. So this given the passage, it was suffer stomach ulcer, and the pigs cannot behave normally because it's not free to move around. So behave normally means it cannot move around, so it's not a bigger space. It cannot socialize, it cannot mate normally, right? Ethical or good because it can produce better quality of food for human. It suffer less because we don't need to inject them with growth hormone because the body can already contain the gene for growth hormone, can produce by itself. So this is unethical and ethical. It looks like ethical is ethical in the context of human, but for the pig, these two are not what they want, right? Correct or not? So it's in the context of human only. Okay. Got 3 more minutes, so we'll try to finish it. Okay. Predict means you make a logical connection with the data or with the information in the passage to give your answer. So predict. Okay. So snow leopards usually live and hunt alone. Their main prey is grazing herbivores, such as wild sheep and goats. They will also hunt domesticated animals and livestock that people keep in the farm, like chickens, okay, ducks, goats, cows. Okay, the number of snow leopards has decreased dramatically in the last 40 years. So the question asks the student to predict the consequences to the ecosystem if the number of snow leopards continue to decrease. 3 marks. So this question is from which chapter? Biodiversity conservation, right? Okay. So, and it's talking about there's an interconnection between the organism to the food chain. If one organism in the food chain decrease in the number, the rest of the organism in the food chain or food web will be affected. So this is what happened. So when a snow leopard, so let's say this is a snow leopard, okay, feed on the herbivore. This one doesn't look like herbivore. Okay lah, this herbivore lah, okay, good lah, okay. A, correct. Wrong. This food chain is wrong already. So it must start from the grass, okay, the grass. Then it's fed by the herbivore, so the rabbit. Okay, the rabbit, okay. Then you got the snow leopard, which is this one here, okay, snow leopard. So now as the snow leopard number decreases, there's less snow leopard to feed on the herbivore, right? So the herbivore number will increase. So when the herbivore number increases, there'll be more herbivore feeding on the grass, which is the plant. So the plant number will decrease. So other herbivores that feed on the plant, they cannot get enough food. So they may actually decrease in number and eventually they'll die off. And then rabbit also will face the same condition. Initially, population size will increase. Then when the plant cannot grow anymore, right, because it's over consumption already, so the plant number will drop. Eventually, the rabbit also cannot get enough food. Their numbers also will drop. So eventually when the numbers drop and then they die, you can see that the biodiversity in this ecosystem will also drop. So this is how you see the interconnection between when one organism in the food chain is affected, the rest of the organism in the food chain as well as the food web will eventually be affected and the whole biodiversity will be affected. Okay, so let's look at the answer. The number of prey of the snow leopard will increase originally because the predator number drop, right? So the prey number will increase and they will feed on the plant, so the plant number will drop, and this will also cause a damage to habitat. That means to say the grass is a very good plant to hold on to the soil, so there's no soil erosion. So when the plant die, they do no longer hold on to the soil. So when it rains, the impact of the rainwater from the sky all the way down onto the earth will actually create a force to push out the soil, so that will cause a soil erosion, right? So this is affecting the environment. So it's affecting the abiota. So in this chapter, we talk about how biota is affected and how abiota is affected, right? This is biota. And this is abiota, right? Because ecosystem involve the biota and abiota interaction. So that's why you have to talk about biota and abiota, right? So that's why I got this mark here. Then increase in competition for plants. That means now the herbivores don't get enough food, so they compete with each other for the very limited food source now. Excuse me. So then when they cannot get enough food, the herbivore number will decline. And then they start to migrate away from this place because they cannot get enough food. Excuse me. Reduction in biodiversity or species diversity, genetic diversity, and increase in other predators. What do you mean by increase other predators? When the herbivore number increases originally, other predators on the herbivore will also increase in number originally, okay? So these are all the possible changes. So can you see that when you know the chapter very well, it's very easy for you to explain the answer, okay? So we have completed trying out all the possible questions, not all the questions all the possible statement in the question, okay? So a friendly reminder for questions that need brief explanation, no hanging sentences. You write your sentence fully so that we can understand what they're trying to say. A student will ask, teacher, can I write my answer in point form? You can write your answer in, not advisable, only for essay you can, but now no more essay. So please write answer in full sentence that is easy to understand, but don't write continuous sentence. Break it into small sentences. Why? Because when I read the whole passage, right, and suddenly this one is wrong, when this one is wrong, the whole thing is wrong, you know. Why not you break into small sentence? So first sentence, second sentence, third sentence, fourth sentence is wrong, but this one is correct. You get 3 marks, but this one is 0 mark, you know. So break it into small sentences, or each sentence must be correct. Don't all link together. This one wrong, all connected, all wrong. Apply your keywords and key terms. So use a biological term to a name to describe the process. Okay. So lastly, attendance and feedback. So please take out your handphone and scan the QR code, and then go to key in your feedback, and this is also the attendance taking for today's session, right? So the answers for the worksheet I've given to you will be shared by your subject teacher, whether it's myself or by Miss Liu will share the answer to you. So for me, I'll share to the Dropbox. so that you can check the answers directly. So make sure that you scan the QR code and fill in the form to capture your attendance. Okay, are you done already? If you are done, I will proceed with the final slide. Ken? Okay, so final slide is, thank you very much for taking your time this morning, 10 to 12, to come for this Biology A2 Grade Booster Workshop. I hope that this workshop is helpful for you to put you into perspective of how to answer the question and how to link the knowledge that you know and see how you can apply it to answer the question to score full marks. And your exam time is coming soon. So here's a big good luck wish to all of you. So I hope that the question that come out, you are able to answer all of them and you're in a good state, and you also take good care of yourself throughout this time until you go and sit for the exam and finish the entire exam. Please take good care of yourself. Okay, eat healthily, try to wear masks when you go out so that you don't get any disease that spread to you like me, right? I think I get sick because I went out without wearing mask, and then I definitely catch the virus from somebody else lah. But it's not COVID lah, huh? Okay, it's not COVID, but it's some other viruses.